instructions. All right, so today, I was reloading my chat. Today for this, let's see, what do I want to do for this video? I want to have the return to begin sort of text there. I want that to go away as soon as I hit return. So that way we're like playing now, but I want this to go away. So what would that end up looking like? Right now I think we have this game state, and I think we're in the not started. And in draw here we're just always drawing this to the screen, so it probably would be better for us yeah, we're gonna want to probably have some kind of function that will like draw the text out to the screen based upon what state that we're in. We could just do this as an if statement here. So if, and what do I have this? I have just state, and then down here we have the actual game state. So if state is equal to game state dot not started, we then do this. And the only reason I'm sort of putting this right directly in here in draw is because I haven't decided how I want to abstract this out yet. Do I want a class to handle the interface? Do I want just like some functions that I can call? Or do I want to just keep it in here? I think I'm going to wait until we have more of these and sort of see the pattern of what it's going to look like. But if I do this, I think as soon as we move into the plain state, then this should go away. See how I actually made this. No, I did not. So we don't actually switch over into the other state, clearly. So how would I end up doing that? And in fact, where would I do that? In setup, we have, so we can do it as an event, can't we? When we press return, okay, so when we press, okay, so if key code is enter and state is game state not started, game start, okay, so start game event notify, so we notify the player, hey, we're starting, so you can go ahead and start moving. Start game event, who's paying attention to that? Yeah, we're handing this to the player, so the player is paying attention to it. Now in these events, I don't have the ability for multiple things to listen to them. I could also just switch, and that might be a good way to do it, is I could just say, hey, state, you're now equal to game state dot plain. And that causes that to go away. So, I mean, that works. That's one way to get it to work. However, if I want an event, like the event handler to handle this, so we have this start game event, we're going to want multiple listeners. Right now, only the player is going to be listening to it. And I think that's because in our event system, we can only have one thing. So we can see here, this on notify equals a callback. So we probably want this to on notify, instead of just be a pure callback like this, we probably want to set this to be an array. When we call notify, we're going to loop through this dot on I guess this is going to be the listeners. So when we register a listener, we're going to take a callback, and this dot listeners dot push, and we're going to push the callback into the array, and then on notify. So we're going to loop through. So this dot listeners dot for each. We'll get a callback out of here. And then we're going to call the callback. So callback, hand it the event and the data. And I think that's good enough. So we don't need, so I think that changes it. Now, of course, we're registering listeners. Does everything else just work? I'm really curious if that's actually going to be enough to make it work. It is. Okay, such a simple change to make it so now we can have two functions that are notified whenever we begin the game. So down here, we don't want this to happen at this point in time. We're going to want an actual function to change that the game event. So let's go ahead and show that return doesn't leave. Let's come here into setup. So we have the start game event. We want to register a new function that's going to change the state whenever the start game event happens. So we're going to say start game event dot register listener, and then it takes a callback, and the callback takes in an event and any data. I mean, we don't really care about this because we just know, hey, if the start game event is being called, that's it. Okay, so when you're being called, we want to say state is now going to be equal to game state dot plain. Okay, so let's now try this. And it goes away just like that. And it's much clearer because now multiple things are listening to that, and it's good. Okay, so we have that going away. We probably want to bring that back up, bring another state up to hey, we lost the game, or no, we won the game. This case, we won. So if we reach the end there, I think that there is a game. So there's game object moved into new cell event. What other events do we have? Because we have player moved event, game object moved into new cell event. And I guess that's pretty much it. So when are we calling it to stop? And where are we saying that if it's ended, if the player moves into that end spot? I wonder if is that the player? Is the player the one who's caring about that? I think it is. That would be, of course, the physics module for the player. Here we go. Moved into new cell event. Okay, so when we move into a new cell, then we want to check that if we're at the end, then we're stopping ourselves from moving. But we also want to notify, I guess, the interface, hey, we're done, we won the game. And so that means that in game, we're going to want to create a new event here. And this is going to be like player one event. Okay, so the player one event, we're going to want to pass that in to the player because the player is going to be the one. Actually, no, the physics module is going to be the one that really cares about this. So here's the constructor, and it's going to be the player one event. And then we can come back to here, and for player physics, here's the player one event. And we're going to store this away. And then down here, if we won, we don't want to just stop ourselves from moving. We're going to want to wrap this here. We want to stop ourselves from moving, and then we also want to notify this this event. So this dot player one event dot notify, and there's no data that we need to send, so we could just do that. I'm really thinking about getting rid of the event part of it because these events are very specific. I think the event would make a lot more sense if I used a single event system, and it was global, and so it would notify everything of every event ever. In this case, we're only notifying those who care about it and register themselves. Okay, so we have this player one event. Now we come back to here, and we're going to add a very similar thing into here, which is player one event dot register listener, and then what we're going to want to do, well, when to player one, we want to say the state is now going to be equal to game state dot one. And then down here, so we're going to have an else if state is equal to game state dot one. It's again going to be, I think, very similar. Where we're going to have, we're going to have a text size that's 36. Fill that with white. But instead of this, we could say you won. All right, let's see how that works. You won straight in the center like that. Now, do I want them to be able to reset the game? If I want them to be able to reset the game, what needs to happen? We need to reset, the player goes back to the beginning of the level. So we change the player's location. The camera's location will automatically update to that. Let's see, what else would that need to happen? And our state, right? So we change the state. Now, we don't really know where the player is inside of our entire grid, do we? We know it's in the one grid. The problem here is if we're gonna have to have this in key press, so it would have to be sending off a notification saying, hey, time to reset you. The physics module doesn't really care about this. It's really going to be the game object. We're going to be setting our location back to the initial location. I guess we could loop through and find which type it is and say, hey, type player, I want you to go back to the start, back to the beginning. But how do we know where that is? We create the player here, and then we grid add the player. And then we lose, then essentially we only have that one instance to it, is like where it's being held inside of the grid. I mean, I could search for the player in the grid and then tell it to like to reset. But then I need to say like, well, where are you? I need now to like search through the grid for start and search through the grid for the player. Which I definitely could do. Maybe I want to sort of like remove. So like find and remove the player. I'll get the player back. Now, of course, I've got... Yeah, I probably want to just remove the player. Oh wait, we have this game data player.start x start y. Oh, okay. That's in our game data. We actually show where we're going to start the player. I kind of wonder if I don't really want to start the player that way, but you create the grid and then you can search through for start and then place the player there. And I wonder if that could be a function of the grid. So we've got a super simple grid, right? It's just one row. Essentially, that's all we're really caring about. I guess 2 rows. That being said, if I can use start x and start y here, then I won't have to, I could like just start the player wherever I want, and that would just work. I'm not sure which way I want to go with this. I might want to like just remove this. Let's start with this one. We have this, so I'm gonna need a get entities by type, essentially, out of the grid if I want to reset. So let's create a new game event, and that's gonna be reset. But that will be caught like around here. So I'm gonna do something like have a function. Reset game. And that's gonna be the callback that's gonna be passed in. So it's gonna take the event. I don't even know if we need to take in the event or the event gate data. We just happen to know, hey, if you're called, it's time to reset the game. Which means I don't need to set you as anything else. I can just say const. This is gonna be reset game event. Okay, so a new event system. We're gonna want to register a listener. So reset game event dot register listener, and then for this one, reset game that function. We're gonna just pass into it. And then down in our keyboard, key pressed here. Okay, so if enter in a state is not started, else if key code is equal to enter, and state is equal to 1. Then we want to reset game event dot notify, just like that. That's what we really care about. Then, so U1 press return to play again. So I want you maybe like slightly less over. So like width divided by 2 minus maybe like 75. And then this one is going to be the same thing. So width divided by 2 minus, this is probably closer to like the 200. Height divided by 2, but let's like bring it down by another 50 or so. I could probably actually like do the appropriate math to figure out exactly where I want it to go, but that actually looks pretty decently good. So I can press return to play again now, but it's not going to do anything yet because I need to actually game state 1. Okay, so we went to reset game notify. In reset game, the first thing I want to do is reset the state. So we're going to say state is now going to be equal to game state dot not started. So if I do that, then at least like the text should change. Nothing else should right now. Oh, it didn't. Okay. Did you not run? Oh, I have that entire moving thing. That's in camera and physics module is both of those. Let's get rid of those. So physics module, here's our console log. And then in camera, I have another one there. I don't need you doing that. Okay. Let's do this again. Reset game event is not defined. Okay, so that's game.js line 75. Right, you need access to reset game event here, but I only have this here. So we need to do essentially this. Reset game event, like that, yeah. Audio is low, can I boost it? Is it my voice that's low or the music that's low? Which one should I boost? My voice is peeking into the red sometimes, so I'm not sure I want to boost that too much. But the music I can boost. Cannot hear the music, voice is low. Oh, interesting. Let me, that works. Let me try listening to that. What do I have? I have that, but it's gonna play on the same thing. Let me grab my phone really quickly and try listening to it on there. Maybe it's your setup. Is anybody else in chat like having the music be really low, or my voice is too low? Let me know. I'm gonna check my phone. In the meantime, this is working just nicely. So we're able to get the return happened. The state did reset. Of course, it didn't like reset us to where we wanted to go, but it got us like really close. So that's good. Yes, I know there's a big error there. That's fine. Let's see. My voice does sound. My voice does sound. Go away. Stop. The voice is pretty loud on my phone. The music is not too loud, but I don't want it to drown my voice out either. So I think it might be your setup, Freedom DAO. Also, I can't remember if I said good morning and welcome to the stream. P5.js looks pretty damn cool. Yeah, it is. I do like P5.js. I think it's a pretty fun tool. So we get to the end here. We then are able to reset ourselves. When we hit return, it sets us back to press return to begin. Now I need to set my player back to the beginning of the game. And let's take away that console log before I forget, like the other ones. So that's down here. We've reset our state. Now we need to get our player out of the grid. And then change the player's location and then reset the player again. Now we know that we only have one type of player. We have one player. So maybe we need like a query. So in grid here, I'm thinking, let's get game object by type. We're gonna take in the type. We're gonna have to loop through every single cell to find the type. And I guess this should be game objects by type because it's possible that we might want to get like several of them. So let's do const results. It's gonna be our empty array. We need to do a multiple loop through all of the cells. So we have our grid of down and wide, and I think I can actually, because it's been a while, let me go ahead and erase like the extra stuff around my whiteboard. I was using it for some work stuff. Okay. And let's switch to you. Whiteboard. Oh. There, that's better. Okay, so this is basically what we have the grid, and each one of these cells is an object that's storing all these things by ID. And we don't really know what the player is. So instead, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to loop through. So the first loop is down, so over the Y, and then across all of the rows. And then we're gonna look for everything that has the ID of player, essentially, and then return those. Now we should have just an array of one thing, but if I, for example, wanted to find like all the spikes, I could just say, hey, give me all the spikes. All right, so we're gonna want, okay, get objects by game type. Let's do that first while loop. So we're gonna do this dot cells dot for each, and this will give us the X. So each one of these is going to be an X, like a row. So this will be a row. And then for every single row, we want to loop through that. And then that's going to give us a cell. And so this is where we're going to set, we're now going to loop through the cell because the cell is an object. So we can do a for in loop. So for let object.id in cell. Now we can check to see if, let's see, cell object ID dot type is exactly equal to type. If that's true, then I want results. So push in the object, push in that full object, right? Now, do I want to also delete it from here? So do I want to like take this out and like and remove it? I think I want to do more of like, instead of get game objects idea, let's remove. Because if I remove this, we're going to push you into there, and then I want to delete you from this object. So that's going to be delete cell of object ID. And at the end of this, we're going to return results. And that should now give me the an array that just has the player in it with nothing else, and the player should no longer be in the grid. So it shouldn't be drawn out anymore. So this is remove game objects by type. So in here, in reset game, we want to say now the type. Do we have a list of what these types are? Not really. We're just like manually typing them in. So we probably don't want to do that. We probably want to say like, hey, in game data, like what these types are. And maybe I can do that here. Say types is an object. And so here we're gonna have like, for example, player, it's player. Floor. Okay, so player floor start. We have spike up. We have space. I think space is actually nothing at all, right? We don't do anything with spaces. There's no type space. And I think end. Okay, so if I do that, now in the game we can start using those. So instead of this like player here, it'll be game data dot types dot player. Game data dot types dot floor. Game data dot types dot start. Game data dot types dot spike up. Okay, those are all the types, and so now I can check. So I want game data.types.player. So give me, remove the game objects by type, the player, and return that back to me. As soon as I do this, I should now have the player. So I should go to console.log the player, and the player should disappear from the game. It disappears, and then we now see that we have an array of one object. Nice, nice, nice. So what I want to do here, everything that I have with the player is correct, except its location. We want to reset its location to what we have inside of game data. And so this is actually, let's get the first one out of here. Once we get the first one out of there, then we want to now tell the player, like, change its location. So player dot, I think it's just location dot x. I want you to set to game data dot player dot star x. And then we're gonna add the player back into the grid. Now, is this gonna move the camera over for us for free? Or is the camera just sort of gonna lose everything? I don't know, that'll be interesting. Yeah, so the player goes back to the beginning, but the camera is not being updated. Let's go see how the camera is working. So we have our camera system here. And it has its location. There's the player moved event. Okay, so the player moved event is what the camera is looking at. So where is that? Here's the player moved event. We're passing this into player physics. Okay, as a player moved event. And of course into the camera too. Now, I could, if I press return again, the camera snaps back to the player because that's when the player starts moving. So I see a couple different ways that I can deal with this. I could make this more a global event, and then I'll have access to it in reset, and I'll be able to then say, hey, the player moved. I can also reach into the player and then call that specific one. I don't know if I want to do that though. I kind of like the idea more of doing this. Okay, so create our player moved event here. Okay, let's do that. Now we can call player. Now camera when. So on notify player moved, we really care about. So the data is going to be passed in as this player location. And are you actually checking? You're checking this events. You don't really need to check the events. The events are kind of silly. I need to remove that. Maybe that'll be the next thing I do. Okay, so in here, in reset game, we add the player back in, and then we're also going to say the player moved event dot notify. We don't really care about what event we're sending. And then the data, I think, is just the location, right? So we're going to say player dot location, like what your current location is. If I do that, hit return, the camera snaps back, and we're at the begin again. And we're able to press return to go over, and now we have this infinite loop where we can just sort of play through it. Now we can't jump and we can't do anything, but we're able to reset the game. And I think that's pretty cool. So I think that's one of the things I wanted to do, is the state of being able to win and reset the game. So I'm gonna go ahead and call that an end to like the first video that I'm gonna put up onto YouTube. I'm gonna be continuing working here, for those of you watching the stream live, and we're gonna create several videos today. So this one is another marker, and this is end player one.